Well, let's start here. 2018, is that more or less when?
That's when I broke off from CRG. That's when I was starting on my own.
What was your reasoning to wanting to do more full service?
I always wanted to have placemaking where people come together and started out as strangers, end up being friends, and maybe, relationships happen. It's great when you see these beautiful girls, all the Instagram glam, and they all have burgers and fries. It's very, very heartwarming.
What's the biggest thing you've learned through those tough times?
Don't ever expect success.
The number of restaurants that fail within a certain amount of number of...
They say 95% of all restaurants fail with first 2 years.
So what's the difference between those 95% and the 5%?
The difference is...
What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Successful DNA. I am with my friend here, Jeff Gigante. Jeff, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I was excited to come.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So the question everybody wants to know, who do we get to thank for the Boulon burger?
Well, I guess in short order, you could thank me, but that was a collaboration. Everything we do, especially menu-wise, it's a group of probably 6 to 8 of our leaders where we sit down around a table, and it's a lot of, okay, yeah, I like this, but can we do it here? Can we have a little more grill? Let's do a smash. Let's do a double patty. And so, Joe Gigante, who's my food and beverage co-founder. So Next Level's made up of Andrew Wright, Joe, and myself. And Joe's kind of in charge of the food and beverage. And, Boulon is an homage to Balthazar in New York City. They've got a great smash burger. We wanted to do a great smash burger. All brasseries, it's a classic. So we worked on that for I would say probably 3 or 4 months. So we came up with exactly what we wanted. And, it's our little Le Big Mac, basically.
Yeah. And we were talking before, you sell $75 an hour.
Yeah,
is that right?
$75 an hour.
That is insane.
Bananas.
Obviously the biggest menu item sold, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And then second is the espresso martini.
Okay, of course. Yeah. That's funny. All the girls in the office, they always go and they get the, is there anything on the menu besides an espresso martini and a burger? I don't know.
Yeah, the French martini is excellent as well. Yeah. But it's great when you see these beautiful girls, all the Instagram glam, and they all have burgers and fries. Yeah. It's very, very heartwarming.
That's funny, man. Well, let's start here. 2018, is that more or less when...
That's when I broke off from CRG.
Cool.
That's when, I was starting on my own. I wanted to do, the first 25 years of my career.
And explain what CRG is. So
CRG is Chicho Restaurant Group. It's another group that we started in Tampa. I co-founded that with my partner, Jim Lanza, in 96. We started opening restaurants, and when I parted ways in 18, we had 25 restaurants.
And Fresh Kitchen probably
Fresh Kitchen was
biggest,
the biggest one that
everybody knows about.
Yeah. But Taco Dirty, Green Lemon, Daily Eats, Chicho, Water, all the good ones. We had Lodge, which was a big run in South Howard. That's where Jay and Luigi's is now. But that was 2008 to 2018 was like the quintessential college.
And what led to the split up in 18?
So, they started, when we started the group, my co-founder and I were, younger men, but he had 2 boys and they were babies when we started. They were, I think, 4 and 6. They grew up to young men, and they had a different idea of where Chicho Restaurant Group was going to go. They really wanted to do the fast casual, the grab and go, and my passion has always been full service experiential dining. And we were just moving away from that. And when your life doesn't become about money per se, like it's not your driving force, it's purpose and passion, you got to make choices. And that was a hard choice. I thought when we started, I was going to do this restaurant. My co-founder, Jim, was going to invest with me. And, I was going to use the back end of CRG to kind of run the finances and all that. And we would just continue on, and I would kind of fraction off and start doing some full service concepts. That's, things don't always go as planned. Once I opened that, I really felt that was my passion, and this is my purpose, and I can do it, because the first 25 years we did everything together. I started as a young man at 25, and, back then had a lot of confidence, but not a lot of experience. And so, Jim was that partner. He's, I think 8 or 9 years older than me, but he was super experienced. So he was like, look, and he had money. I didn't have a lot of money at the beginning. So I learned the business through him, but you're always second guessing yourself. At least I do, thinking, am I as good as I think I am? And I was really ready at that point to venture off and try that. And so, we took that space as CRG in Hyde Park to do a Better Bird, our chicken and donut concept that ended up not working out. And so he was going to let that space go. And he said, Jeff, I know you want to do your own thing. It's a perfect time for you to grab this space and do it. It's it's a big obligation. It's a big lease and a lot of rent. And so, I really soul searched and I thought about it and talked to a few people in my life that are important for me and mentors. And they all said, you've got this, like you've been the talent.
And that's what is now Forbici?
Now is Forbici. And we opened that in June of 19.
Cool. And then in the news, I think everybody's seen your favorite landlord over there at Forbici. What's the update there?
The update there is going to come out in the news, so I can't really speak about it, but we have come together and come to terms.
Cool. So
we'll be staying there, and they're. I'll always say it about WS. They're hard, but they're very fair. And I inherited that lease under. It was still under CRG, and so it was just kind of sloppy because CRG never really took it. I ended up taking it, and then when I split off, they needed some assurances and some proper guarantees on that. So we ended up kind of making that all right together.
I'm excited to dive in more with CRG and then obviously next level. But let's go back to kind of the beginning. When you were a senior at Florida State, you started the pizza restaurant, right?
Opened up Gigante Brothers.
So start the beginnings of that. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, my best friend and I lived right behind Bill's bookstore. All my Florida State people will know exactly where this is, across from the Tridelt House. Well, you walk right down that street and you're on Tennessee Street. And so one day I was down there, I don't know, picking up a sandwich, and I saw these kids like building a storefront. So, curious as I was, I popped in and they're like, oh yeah, we're opening up a pizzeria. We already have one at Florida and we're doing like $15,000 a week. It's called Gumby's Pizza. And these guys, look like me. No smarter for sure, maybe less smart. And I went back to my buddy and I was like, these guys are opening this place. They're saying they're doing like $15,000 a week. Like I was doing math. I'm like, it's almost $1 million a year. This is crazy. And his father was an immigrant from Italian, but he was a restaurateur and he opened pizzerias and so he knew the pizza. And I said, I bet that one buddy, Mike from high school, he'll loan us money. Like he was super wealthy in high school, cars that were $100,000 cars back then. And his family owned the number one abrasive machine company in the world. And so I called him up on a lark and I said, Mike, I got a crazy idea. I'm sure the answer is going to be no, but we have this idea for a pizzeria. There's a space right up here on College Avenue, right around from Clyde's, and it's not a lot of money, and I'll make you a partner and I'll give you good interest. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. Let me know what you need. Write it up. So we went back home, met with him that next weekend, had a check for $30,000, and we're starting a business. All the meanwhile, I was still finishing school. It's my senior year. And we opened up, Gigamo Brothers. So his last name's Adamo, I'm Gigante. So we put the name together, Gigamo Brothers Pizza and Pasta. And, back then everybody had to have a really catchy number. So we were 222 BROS, call the brothers for your pizza. And so, we opened up doing $12,000, $13,000 a week, and we're absolutely crushing it. But that wasn't my end all and be all. That was a means to an end.
Yeah.
I wanted to open that up, get it running, and then move to New York and follow my dreams of becoming an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hoping that, I'd be able to get $500 a month from them, help me with my rent and not have to really work too much and be able to really struggle less. And, I think I got 2 checks. The 3rd check bounced. By the time I was recashing it for the 4th, they had closed up shop. So I learned a lot of lessons. Well, I learned that you've got to really be smart on who you choose partners. And, my partner, Mike, very hardworking guy, but we had a few other partners in the business that, were experiencing the college life.
Yeah.
And so the actual responsibilities and obligations of the business became very secondary to them. And I was always the guy there, like,
you're putting 40 hours in 50, 60 hours in a week.
60, 70. Yeah.
While
I was
still being a
working all the
student.
time. Like, we built the entire restaurant space out. We didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, but for me, it was enough for me to be bit by that bug. So when I get the call, and I actually called the restaurant and it was like, the number you have called has been, I'm like, oh no. So I called Mike, our financier, our investor, and he's like, I already know. I tried to call up there. Those idiots have closed the whole place down. And I said, Mike, I'm so sorry. But listen, I'm giving you my word. I'm paying that $30,000 back. He's like, no, you're not. It's like you and your partner borrowed that money. I'm splitting that right down the middle. I'm going to get 15 from him and 15 from you. And so I paid him back in 2.5 years. And he wrote me the most beautiful letter saying, this was a handshake deal. We didn't have any contract. You really had no obligation to pay me back. And this was an investment, but that you did, I'm going to predict now. And this, I was 23 years old. He's like, you're going to be one of my most successful friends.
That's cool.
And so for me, that was better than my diploma. Because, I wanted to be a good bet for people. I was hoping in the future other people would bet on me and invest in me. And if your first deal goes bunk and you don't make good on it, that's your word.
Yeah.
And so, I started working at a restaurant up there for the Lanzas. They had 5 of the hottest restaurants in New York City. And
are those still around? Are those still around, those 5?
So no, they're not. So after the boy's father passed away, he was a billionaire, left the boys lots of money, and they all, they still did restaurants for a little bit, but they all kind of got into other businesses, owning real estate, land, car dealerships, security businesses. And, Jim was the only one who stayed in the restaurant business and is continuing. And, Fresh Kitchen is a monster company, and I'm sure they're going to sell for, a 20 or 30 time, EBITDA. So I'm very happy for them on that. But, I started working for them, and as my acting career was like this, my restaurant career was steady going up. And I loved it. I married my college sweetheart out of college. And so I wanted to plant roots and have a family. And as I was like seeing all my friends start to book movies and stuff, they're like, okay, I'm going to Vancouver for 6 months. I'm like thinking, how am I going to do that with a wife and child and like travel all over the world? And, pilot season in LA is this time. And then you're making movies and doing plays, and that's in LA or London. And so I was like, I didn't have good planning there. Mm-hmm. I didn't align, what my dreams and goals and aspirations were with what my business dreams were. So restaurants were, a great bet for me because I really enjoyed creating a concept and coming up with it and then putting it out there to the world and seeing how it did.
And then at what point did you go from New York to Tampa?
So that was in 95, after working up there for 4 or 5 years and rising to a management level in the Lanza's organization. I talked to my then wife and said, our families are both in Florida. We want to have kids. We want that help. We want them to be able to experience that. And I'm going to pitch to my then owner this idea of taking this concept, this Chicho and Tony's, down to Tampa. All our friends are graduating law school or medical school. We have tons of people there. I can get a little bit of investment from family and friends. And, I only need X amount from him. I'll have him come down for 3 months and get us open, teach me how to actually open the restaurant. I know how to run one, And so that was the whole plan. I went and I pitched it to him, and, the only thing he agreed to is like, I'll let you buy a plane ticket and, I'll spend 3 or 4 days down there on your dime to see if I see what you see. Took him down to I planned that South Tampa trip, put him on Bayshore Boulevard, got him a week-long pass to Harbor Island, got him even a 10-speed bike. And, he really fell in love with Tampa. And I didn't know at the time, he had a ton of things happening in his personal life and his family life. And, he was wanting to get out of New York too. So we agreed to do this restaurant. And he was like, I'm going to come down for 3 months, get you open, then go back to my restaurants in New York. He came down and never went back. I remember
what was the first restaurant?
Chicho and Tony's opened up September 13th, Friday the 13th of 96. Right there, 1015 South Howard, right across from Burns.
Okay, yeah. And then what year, and then let's go, I think people would want to hear the concept of Fresh Kitchen and like how it came about. What year did it come about? How did it come about?
So we started conceptualizing Fresh Kitchen in 2013. We opened the first one in 2014 right there on Howard Avenue.
This is 20 years after.
So this is 20 years after all of that. And you know, to be honest with you, it was really Stevie Lanza, the youngest Lanza boy. It was, you know, he was super into health and fitness and wellness and wanted to eat healthy, but kind of cleaner than what was out there. And so we were coming up with this idea, and we were thinking less of the fast casual, but he was super adamant about like, this has got to be like a Chipotle, but we're going to make it farm to table. So that was really his brainchild. And, you know, his brother didn't really believe in that at the time. You know, he's like, I can't remember, but he may not even have invested at that time in the first Fresh Kitchen. He came back around very quickly and then has been involved ever since. But like, you know, that was just how we were doing it. And I thought it was a cool idea. We opened up doing 12 or 1,300 bowls a day. It was insane. So we quickly saw the relevance and the need for that. And so we started on a plan to start, you know, replicating and growing that.
That's insane.
Yeah,
I think
they have 19 now or 20, or they're really growing. And I believe, and this is just me personally, I don't know anything on the inside. I haven't really spoken to them, but they've got to be ripe for acquisition from somebody big.
That's kind of my next question. Like in our business, we get a high multiple. I thought was a high multiple at like a 15 to 18x at the scale we're at because there's a lot of residual income.
Sure,
but I mean 20 to 30x.
Yeah.
That's like what?
Well, you know, they're buying the idea, and I think our average unit volume at Fresh Kitchen is like 3.9 or 4.1 million, and we're better than a 22% EBITDA on that.
And there's 20 of them.
And there's 20.
So talking
do the math.
$80 million and just Fresh, 100 million and just Fresh Kitchen.
Just Fresh Kitchen.
$100 million.
I think that's where they're at.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we did make a great deal with a friend of mine, Kevin.
22% margins.
Yeah. Damn. And they're very inexpensive. I mean, as compared to me, I'm building Boulons and big Forbicis and multi-million. You know, we were throwing those up for, I don't know, back when I was there, $1.5 million. So you can scale quickly.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're not having chefs in the kitchen. You're having cooks. You're not having servers and there are managers, but there's one or two managers per store. They're 1,900 square foot.
Yeah. And then that makes me think of the question, you know, everybody always hears, and I want to get your viewpoint on this, that like the restaurant business is just cutthroat and you don't make a lot of money. Well, that's not the case there.
Well, you know, sadly, there's a lot of bad apples in our business that see, you know, if I could tell you how many people are like, I could do what you do. You talk to pretty girls and you're like walking around shaking hands, and, you know, that's the tip of the iceberg of what we do.
Yeah.
So people are very intoxicated by this. You know, I could do great food. My grandma used to make unbelievable tomato sauce. I'll open a restaurant. I'll make a ton of money. Millions of holes in the floor where pennies fall through. Yeah. You've got to really block. But once you get onto a great formula, which I've done over my 30-year career, you can make great money and great multiples.
I've heard, what's the stat? You might know it. I've heard it where like the number of restaurants that fail within a certain amount of number of.
They say 95% of all restaurants fail within the first 2 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a frightening statistic. But
so what's the difference between those 95% and the 5%?
The difference is the people, the product, and the process. It's really making sure that you understand you understand your prime costs. The prime costs are made up of your cost of goods sold and your labor. And you've got to keep those numbers below, 52%. Like whenever I'm looking at a restaurant, either to acquire or to try to consult and help people, that number is in the 65 to 70%. They've got zero chance. Yeah. Their occupancy costs are usually out of whack. You want to keep those below 8%. They're 12, 13%. there's nothing left after their general costs. Like they're losing money, and it's no fun to work 60 hours a week and lose money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to get out of those situations
or even like make a little money. You got to start.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, they're the last to pay themselves. They don't understand the marketing, the storytelling, and so the land, we're in rarefied air with, like summers drop off in Tampa, St. Pete, because it's so hot.
Yeah.
So the second week of June till like the third week of September, drop about 20% of your normal revenue. We're up like 11, 12% over our last year numbers, which for me is amazing that we're still climbing.
For all three concepts?
All three concepts.
That's cool. And then let's dig in a little more. I want to get into next level. So then 2018 is the split. We talked a little bit about it. But then what was your reasoning into wanting to do more full service versus the grab and go?
So for me, I'm a people person. I fancy myself a marketer, but I never went to school for that. But, that was my mom's DNA. Like she was public relations and really an amazing hostess. And I just watched her move within a room, and I love that. Like, she was always the center of every room. And so for me, I always wanted to have gathering places, placemaking where people come together and started out as strangers, end up being friends, and maybe, relationships happen. And so for me, that's what Chicho and Tony's started as. And our first 6, 7 restaurants were full service restaurants. The fact that there's great money to be made but for me, there's no passion in waiting 8 minutes in line to get your bowl at Fresh Kitchen and, going out the door. I think it's great if you're just doing it to make money. I never, ever did anything in my life solely for money. Yes, I wanted to live a good life and make a good income and be comfortable. But for me, it was always about passion and purpose. And so I was always a full service guy. And as I saw the writing on the wall to where we were getting away from full service, like literally there were conversations happening from the youngins up to us where, full service is too hard. It's hard to train people. And in my life, having something be hard was never a reason not to do it. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And so I was like, this is not a place for me anymore. Like certainly I didn't want to just sit back at 50, retire and earn money and not do anything I was passionate about. That's why I thought I'll build my full service restaurants alongside of what we're doing, let them invest in it and kind of do that. But I realized very quickly that, we were always like this. My co-founder was above me. I was here. I was the guy working, honest, hardworking, integrity, didn't have money. Well, when the money kind of evened out and at least what we were earning, he could never see.
Was the equity the same?
The equity was never the same in the first go round. I would always have, the biggest piece that I could afford, but I was owning pieces of 25 restaurants. And again, I didn't come from any money. My family didn't pass away and leave me hundreds of millions of dollars. So I was able to afford as much as I could. And I was constantly, betting on the next. And I earned a very comfortable life. I was making great money. But it was never equal equity because it was him with his 2 kids. They had to all have comfortable pieces. And then there was me. And so moving forward, but that was never really motivation for me to get out. The motivation for me was I really wanted to try and test myself and to see if I had what it took to do everything on my own. And Forbici was 100%, on my own. I had,
You're the first person I've heard pronounce it the correct way.
Yeah, Forbici.
Everybody calls it Forbici.
Yeah. You know what? Again, same thing with Chicho, Cicero. Everybody messed that name.
Yeah.
I don't care what you call us as long as you call us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Yeah. So Forbici, let's go into that. I mean, obviously you had the Italian concept back in college, but what led to more of like you knew that this was going to be the first?
Well, I mean, Italian is such a heralded and loved comfort food. It's my heritage. It's what I grew up eating, so it was only natural, and nobody was really doing Roman style pizza. And so when we started, Jay Brunetti was he worked with us at CRG. He had just moved back from New York. He had pizzerias up there, one in the Hamptons, one in the city, very successful. And he was like, you got to learn about this Roman pizza. It's all over New York. So he taught me about that. I learned. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So let's bake that into this concept. And he ended up starting that with me. He was going to be my GM and a partner. Well, as things started to kind of fray between, my co-founder and myself, he kind of went on that line and ended up leaving to go do his own thing, which is now Jay and Luigi's. So everybody got what they wanted. But for me, I saw Forbici as a concept that we believe there can be 20 to 40 of them throughout the Southeast United States. Cool. And that's what we're building now.
And then what was everybody saw what they saw in the news, and we mentioned a little bit, but like, what was the issue at hand with the landlord?
What's up, you guys? I wanted to introduce to you our done-for-you Airbnb investing service called B&B Turnkey that has massive tax implications. It's basically an investing service that allows you to invest in cash-flowing Airbnbs and not do any of the work. It's best explained in 3 phases. Number 1, we find, analyze, and underwrite the property. In phase 2, we handle all the interior design and construction. And then phase 3, we manage the property on the back end. The best part is most of our clients qualify for the short terminal loophole of the IRS tax code. This allows for average clients to write off over $200,000 in depreciation on their tax bill. For more information, click the link in the description to connect with our team. As always, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the episode.
So with the landlord, we had a messy situation with the lease. The lease was still in CRG Management's name. We had some amendments that we needed to do. And, since I was no longer part of that, I wasn't really authorized to sign the amendment in the space that I had held the entire time. Mm-hmm. So they just need to kind of clean that up. And we did that together. Sadly, the news picked it up. And, in order to kind of cure the situation, everything had to be kind of tossed out and renegotiate to kind of get us back in.
Cool.
So that's all that happened.
And then, so after Forbici, what was the next concept?
So after Forbici, we were going to open Union New America, and that's how we started Next Level Brands. Mm-hmm. So Union was going to be the next one, but I started building that restaurant right in the middle of COVID, and we just got crushed. It took me, it should have been 7 months, took us 15 months to build that restaurant. So all the while, Boulon,
when did you start?
We started that August of 21.
Okay.
We didn't open until April of 23.
Okay.
So took a long time.
So you started Boulon after, but finished it after.
We started Boulon long after Union had started, and we finished it before. Yeah. So we opened up Boulon before Union, and it was ready and it was needed, and we were the first full service restaurant in the entire Water Street development. And so I wasn't going to build that restaurant to completion, then sit and wait, 90 days to open it. So we were ready to go, and we opened that.
And then is Boulon the biggest from a revenue perspective right now?
It is. Yeah. It is only because of that area is just on fire.
What's your lease? What's your rent there?
We pay probably upwards of $1 million a year in rent.
I was always wondered. I was like, that rent's got to be ridiculous.
But again,
it's worth it though.
If you're paying rent like that, it's for a reason.
Yeah, and like I told you before, we'll do 5 or 6 Lightning games and do a box or do the Channel Club, and we always go, even though it's free food, whatever. We always go to Boulon across the street before, just kind of staple. And then my 5-year-old just loves the burgers. Then he loves the Lightning, and then it's just like the best. So what's next? So before we go into what's next for Next Level, like why Next Level? What was the name? Where did the name come from?
Yeah, so
I like the name, by the way.
I was very proud to kind of launch Forbici under Gigante Hospitality. But again, I believe the secret to life is continuing to learn. And I was thinking about that, and it was really tying me into the center of this company, which I did not want. I wanted this company to be a collaboration and a collective of a lot of great people coming together to create, a great hospitality company. And so when we were sitting with Andrew Wright, my co-founder, and Joe Gugino, he asked a very poignant question, which was like, do you want to just build like 3 or 4 restaurants, or do you want to build a hospitality company? And I was like, hospitality company. I want to be in hotels and sporting events and, take over concepts. Like I want to do all of that. And, and I told him, I said, I don't want this to be Gigante Hospitality because I want this to live long after me. And I want this to be where people can come to really create their career path. And so we just kept talking when we were creating concepts, like, yeah, it's got to be next level. It's got to be next level. And like, I think Andrew's like, that should be the name, bro. Yeah. This should be Next Level Hospitality and Next Level Brands. And that's what we ended up coming up with.
And then you have the 3 concepts now. Boulon's the best. What top line will Boulon do?
So we'll be in the $20 million area.
Okay. That's obviously a lot of money. And then what's next out of the 3 concepts? You mentioned Forbici being multiple locations.
So our vision and mission is elevating the culinary landscape of the Tampa Bay area, which includes St. Pete and Sarasota and, this whole collective. So we believe Forbici is our growth vehicle where there can be many of those.
Why is that?
Because it's super approachable. It's a food that is widely accepted by every palate. Mm-hmm. It travels well. It delivers well. Uber Eats, we do, I think, a couple $1 million a year, just Uber Eats alone out of that concept. Live music, very approachable pricing. It's like the neighborhood Cheers. Mm-hmm. And it's easily replicatable. I know that menu. I know that concept. I can put 3 or 4 of those up a year.
You don't feel the same way about Boulon?
I don't. Boulon is a massive lift. We have 7 floor managers in that concept to do 1,600 covers a day. And with that, that French fare, it's challenging. And there's a big liquor component to that. And you've got to be, that possibly could be the best restaurant site location in the entire state of Florida.
Yeah.
Directly across from Amalie Arena in a brand new $4 billion development. At the center, Keystone, like, you're on Main and Main there.
And it's just the beginning of that development, too.
Completely. Yeah. That said, we would do another Boulon if all of these synergies came together and the factors came together. But like, it's, it was an expensive restaurant to build.
We skipped over that. Like, how did you get into that space? Where the concept come from?
That's where, the beauty of our partnership. That Andrew Wright was the, mm-hmm. I was a local restaurateur, but Cameron Mitchell, Darden Restaurant Group, everybody wanted that space. Mm-hmm. And why would they ever give it to a local guy? That's because Andrew positioned us and said, Jeff's my partner. He's the best in town. And this is his coming out party. Mm-hmm. This is going to be his moment. And we're going to deliver this unbelievable concept that it'll be as good as any restaurant on the country.
You've done it.
And we did it.
Yeah.
We did it. But we could have failed. You know what I mean? So
did you meet any of the big players in the Water Street development?
I've met them all.
Bill Gates, all of them.
Well, I haven't met Mr. Gates, but I've met Michael Lynch, his number one, who comes in quite a bit. Josh Taub, who is the CEO of SPP, has become a great friend. He's dear friends with Andrew and a super dynamic guy.
That's cool.
He's building the Four Seasons in Charleston right now.
Oh, cool.
I didn't realize, but Cascade owns 95% of Four Seasons now. They've bought that all up.
That's cool.
And so, so they're doing, amazing things. But like, again, that's the beauty of our business is so many people come through the door. I walked in and Billy Joel had just left the restaurant. Like, everybody's staying at the Addition. Mm-hmm. So, Ludacris is there and Mike Tyson's in. And, it's just to see what Tampa's become is just amazing.
Who's been your, the favorite person you've met over at Boulon? Or maybe not Boulon, but anywhere, but any of the restaurants.
The favorite person that I have met.
Celebrity. Besides me. I'm kidding.
Yeah, you, actually.
No.
I don't know. I love them all. I had a lovely conversation with this young girl, SZA.
Oh, yeah.
Who I had no idea who it was, but until I told my 13-year-old daughter and my girlfriend, and they're like, oh my God. She was, lovely. Justin Timberlake.
we went to his concert.
Yeah. So
Chase put us in a box. That was sick.
Yeah.
That was a good concert.
Yeah. No, so it's cool. Again, like I said, they're all my favorite. I love meeting them and great business guys. We've had, I was trying to get Keith McNally, who's, the restaurateur in New York who created Balthazar, but he's, with Steven Starr, they did a pastis down in Miami. And so I invited him. He did not come. I would love to meet him. But so, I mean, and I think that, like you said, it's just the beginning. Phase 2, phase 3 of what they're doing with, the Water Street development is insane. And so we're only going to have more and more.
What's the latest? I can't keep up with it. What's the latest with the Rays?
So it looks like
they're staying in St. Pete.
Well, I think they're going to stay, and I think that the purchase has gone through without a stadium attached to it. Like, they're still trying to make the deal on the Trop, or maybe they're going to play again at Legends. We're one of the official fine dining food partners for the Rays this year with Union, our new restaurant. And it's been great to have all the guys in and their wives and
How's Union doing?
Union's doing great.
Good.
I mean, it's really, people are finally starting to understand that, one of the challenges, and any less restaurateur would have, allowed this to really become a thing, but we opened in the wrong light with the wrong administration, wrong GM, wrong chef. And they really wanted to push a fine dining protocol. Well, that's not who I am. And, we're laid back luxury. I want you coming in like this, feeling very comfortable to, buy a $90 steak and have your cocktail. And, I want girls coming on Thursday night from their yoga classes, and how they were setting that restaurant up was not allowing that. So we had to make a big change and rebuild. But for me, it's a great lesson to our leaders and our team is that, look, we got it wrong at first. We were going to do a nightclub upstairs with DJs and brought in a wrong crowd, and there was guns and so we very quickly pivoted. Now that's a supper club. We got a great piano guy up there. And so Friday, Saturday nights, you go up there, you can have an amazing meal, live entertainment, very controlled atmosphere. And so, we figured it out, but now people are really starting to understand this restaurant. Our lunches, we're doing 200 to 300 lunches a day. It's really starting to come on.
Any new concepts in your head? Of course there are, but probably 1,000. But anything?
Of course. So we have an elevated Mexican concept we're getting ready to announce. That's going to be in the downtown corridor, and will open up next year.
What has you most excited about that?
Creating a new concept. Yeah. This is a concept that's lived in my head for a long time. Yeah. Completely new.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you think about it, next level, big Italian, big French, big American, and now big Mexican. And with Mexican, we had Green Lemon, which was a great Mexican restaurant. But, in my opinion, this is an elevation, just like my restaurants are an elevation of the restaurants that we were building at that time. And there's a huge tequila culture, mezcal culture, live fire, tableside guacamole, tableside margaritas, live music. And so, think of Boulon, but Mexican.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it'll be cool. And people are always, claiming that there's not enough nightlife. Well, I love the fact that we can create dining that turns into nightlife.
When will you break ground on that?
The lease will probably be signed in the next 14 days.
Cool.
And so it's deliverable right now.
Cool.
So, the concepts, we got a little trip to Mexico City planned, and get some inspiration and start working.
And then so how does it go in? How did your head go into that in terms of all right, you're going to Mexico City to get some inspiration, then you want to build it, timeline, what does that look like?
So, we have an amazing designer that built Union and Boulon, Zebulon Perron out of Montreal. And so we run, we create a team. We have an unbelievable graphics and designer. We have, great social media and videographer. And, so we kind of run these ideas through the team. And when we were running it through Zeb, he's like, Jeff, the hottest designs in the world are coming out of Oaxaca, Mexico. Like all the greatest design, all
and
the
that
new
team,
hotels.
That's all like internal team, like W2 team?
No,
or is that?
no, these are outside vendors that stand alone. And then we...
Your videographer.
Exactly. Like... Part of the mistake we made at CRG is we were doing just that. We were using these great vendors, and then we thought, let's create this our own. We're going to have all these restaurants. So we would hire the girl that was doing our social media to be our social media director until we talked with her, and she's like, I was being told what to do. I mean, you guys got to tell me what to do, and I'll do it, but I don't have that So we got super
Originality,
inefficient there.
yeah.
So we're not doing that. So we're hiring the best and the brightest of what they do,
Yeah.
and creating a team mentality, saying we're going to give you multiple jobs. We're going to build lots of restaurants, but like we want to work like this together. And so I'm super excited about the design, the name. It's going to be the namesake of one of our co-founders, loved ones. And so I see this restaurant just like I saw Boulon. And I just know it's going to be a huge hit. And how we find concepts to put is we just survey the landscape and fill in the niches that are missing.
Is it going to be near Water Street?
It is.
This episode won't come out. You'll already announce it by the time this comes out. So, is it like similar to be able to walk to it from?
Yes,
Yeah.
you could definitely walk. And then Forbici's, we have Forbici, St. Pete that's going to be opening the end of this year.
Okay.
Right there. It's in Sundial. We took the sea salt space. We have a big, beautiful bar in the center of that courtyard of that development that we're going to be opening. And that bar will have, TVs and big LED walls so you can watch the games there. And we're going to have live music in that courtyard. It's going to be, you've been to Sparkman Wharf, the beer garden there?
Yeah.
So think of that in the middle of Sundial instead of a big sundial that really didn't bring anything in.
And that's your first St. Pete concept.
The first one under this group. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Coming home. This is my hometown. I grew up here.
And then what's your opinion on the relationship and the difference between Tampa and St. Pete?
I think, there's lots of pros and cons for each. We have probably 10 million plus restaurants over in Tampa. There may be 2 here in St. Pete.
Which are?
Teak on the water, and then probably Juno and the Peacock, and maybe now Elliott Astor, the new. So those 3 will probably be in that big restaurants that do that. Like, in Tampa, there's tons of them.
Yeah.
So I think that, that's a big difference. But I do love the waterfront and how downtown was built properly.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to fix our downtown in Tampa because, it was all industry on the waterfront.
Yeah.
And so now they're, with the development of Water Street, they're starting to really, lay claim back to that waterfront and build onto that.
That's awesome. What else from a growth perspective? You got the Mexican concept.
Yeah. So we've got a spot in Sarasota for another Forbici.
Okay, there you go.
We're working on a ground pad out in the Wiregrass area near the new Cooper's Hawk for another Forbici.
Wiregrass is going to be different than what you've done before, or at least the Forbici concept.
Different, but super dense. A lot of rooftops there and a tremendous lack of creative dining.
Yeah.
Lots of chains out there. But that's why we really believe a Forbici out there, live music, kind of like a gathering, little cheers for the community there, will do very well.
At what point, your story is awesome, and we're going to close up here because we've gone close to an hour at this point. I know. What, obviously, in this, let's see, it's been a 30-year career plus in restaurants. There's been some tough times.
Oh, yeah.
What's the biggest thing you've learned through those tough times?
Don't ever expect success. Now, we plan for success and we really believe that we're doing what we're doing. But in the failures I had early on in CRG, we were just phoning it in thinking that we couldn't miss. And that's the time you miss. And those misses for me were, high 6 figures. And you can't have a lot of those in your career. So right now we're really looking at location and making sure that we really believe in it. And rent's just a factor of that. You're going to pay high rent. It's for a good reason. It's because they're delivering you thousands of customers daily. Yeah. So, my biggest thing is never stop learning, never stop giving. That's how you create a successful life, is give back to the community that's risen you up. And so that's why we do a ton of philanthropy, and, I'm very involved in the community, and our entire team is.
I like that plan for success, but don't expect it. With the Mexican concept, are you planning it or are you expecting it?
I'm planning for it. It's in an area that's still up and coming. There's a few decent restaurants in the area, but we will definitely be the big name there. And, it's got adjacent successes all around it. But this is very close to the Riverwalk. It's a great up and coming area, and the shell looks a lot like Boulon, 30-foot ceilings. Like, it's going to be a beautiful restaurant with the design that we're going to come up with. I think that it's going to be one of these places where, like, soon when people are in our spots, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is a Next Level Brands restaurant.
That's sick, man.
Yeah.
We'll end with this, with the podcast being on Successful DNA. Whether it's you or the amazing business partners you've had, amazing people that you've met along the way, like, what, in your opinion, 2 or 3 things that are inside of people and that are required for success?
Yeah, I think humility, work ethic, and having an eye towards innovation. And, I always keep a very tight circle of way smarter people in my surroundings that I can always go to and say, hey, I just want to run something by you. And completely objectively, I want you to speak on what you think. And a lot of times it'll be contradicting to my thought process, and that'll give me pause to where I'll really have to go through a vetting process of all these things that have checked off for me, and my deference and respect for them to say, why did they say this? And it was completely different than mine. And it'll have me kind of take an inventory and see if it's something that I truly believe in. But for me, it's never stop learning. And, we're staying on our formula of success, which is, see the niche of things missing and fill those in, but, be extremely purposeful in your design and execution, and make sure that, we do all of the hard work to open the restaurant, but once we open is when the real work begins, because we listen to our guests and what they tell us by their dollars. They vote with their dollars. They don't like this. We could have loved the burger, and if no one was buying it, it's off the menu. We're not romanticizing anything that's on our menus. We're looking at the hard data that's coming in and moving that way.
Love your story. Pulling for you. You have a new fan in me. And then, guys, thank you for listening to another episode of Successful DNA. Jeff, where can they find more about you and your concepts?
I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram and all those things, and TikTok because of my 13-year-old. But anything Next Level Brands or any of the restaurants kind of all link you back to our mothership. And we appreciate, you guys checking us out and supporting the restaurants. It means everything. Without that, we would be nothing.
Thanks for coming, bro.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.